We haven't. This is our first episode for our new season. Although I'm not
Oh,
sure if we're going
wow.
to drop it first, but maybe we will. I hope we do. If we don't, it's going to be early.
Yeah,
But
Okay.
yeah.
this, I shave. I even shaved for you, Paul. Took off
You
my
look great.
cap. Thank you. Thank you.
Uh,
Ruben, you didn't say anything?
No, I was gonna say I appreciate your little toupee, that little thing you stuck on there.
I'm trying to keep every hair I could get.
I'm trying to figure out what's going on in his head. I just trying to figure it all out. I don't know
yeah,
what's
you
going
just
on.
got to go Michael Jordan.
I think so. I think so. That's my next move.
I will say this that when we landed in Malang, the it was Sonia. So like I was walking in with Sonia and Penny, and Paul was in front, taking us to the car, kind of leading us. And I turned to Sonia and I go, it looks like a bodyguard for Paul. Looks like one of these like retired SEALs, but
Yeah.
still is in the game. He's like he's
Right.
ripped. He's like good looking, but seasoned.
Yeah.
Been there a few years, a little bit older, but still ready for
Like
the
he has
game.
a story. He has a story to
He
tell.
does.
If you talk, yeah.
Yeah, and he's still ready. He's still in the game.
Maybe I should have been there on the day that Trump was shot. Yeah, maybe I should have been guard.
Maybe.
You should have. You would have.
Maybe.
It would have been more effective for sure. Hello, everybody. Today we are back, and we have a return guest, and it's exciting to see you again. We are talking to the director of Charis Academy in Malang, Indonesia. We're talking to Paul Richardson. How are you, Paul?
I'm so good. So good to see you guys again.
Yes.
Good to see you.
Well, we're a sight for sore eyes. I don't know what you're talking about. It's good to see you. I don't know about Jake and me. We've been around
Well, I think I'm
too
looking
long.
good this year, but go ahead.
You looking good? You
I
looking
think so.
okay. So there's a lot to talk about, and the last time we talked, I talked to you about Charis Academy, the place in which you are the director of a school, K through 12, Paul?
Mhm. Yeah.
And and you and Cyndi have been in Indonesia for 20 plus years. I guess I would start by asking you, this school, by the way, I will say this now that I've seen it up close, and we're going to talk about that right now. It's like it's carved out of a garden. I don't know how else I could describe it. It is the best looking public school I've ever seen in terms of K through 12, or a school in that way that I've ever seen. I guess my question to you is, did you foresee that, or did you see that in your imagination 20 years ago? If not, what did you see, and how is it different today than in your imagination when you went down there?
Yeah, it was so good to have you here, Ruben. That was just such a beautiful week. Thank you so much for you and the others who came. What a blessing you guys were. Uh, yeah, 25 years actually. September 16th. So that's coming up here pretty fast. Maybe in 3 weeks from now. It'll be 25 years since we landed here. And then after 3 years of being here, then I started this school. 5 teachers, 36 children, grades 1 through 4, elementary school. And so now it has grown to about 1,000. It's under 1,100. And we have a staff of around 150. And that would include all of our security and gardeners and cleaning staff and office staff. I definitely started, I would say, with a strong vision. And I would say visionary leadership is my strength. And I would just define that as the ability to close your eyes and picture or imagine what you really want and where you're going. To have a strong sense of purpose. And so with that, the ability to see both what's happening that is still underdeveloped or is against the vision or needs work, and then to see when the vision has become a reality. So yeah, I started with a strong vision, and I felt like a strong sense of calling and purpose, and really for what I wanted. But your question specifically was 23 years ago, could I see what Charis is now? And no, not at all. I would say maybe the first decade, I was building and working, shaping, leading something with a strong sense of this is what I'm trying to build. And a lot of it was simply maybe the reconstruction of people's mindset of what they believed education was. So you have a whole group of Indonesian teachers who have been educated in a certain way. And what I wanted for Charis to become was radically different from that, with a whole different set of values and even how we view children and what the whole point of school was. But I was only 35, maybe 34 at the time, and I was still quite young. And so all these years I've been reading and learning and changing myself. So my own vision has been growing. And then I would say after about 10 years of me feeling like, I don't know if you guys remember, there was an athlete named Jack LaLanne. Are you guys old enough to remember that?
Yeah.
I still have memories of him when I was a little kid. I would watch this guy on TV. He was like his athlete celebrity. And he put this rope in his teeth and he pulled a ship across this harbor. He swam, pulling this ship across this harbor. So
Oh, he was incredible.
my first 10 years developing the school was, I kind of felt like Jack LaLanne. Like every day was just pulling and working so hard to, with this vision in mind. But then what happens is you get what I call like a critical mass. So it starts with like maybe 10% of the people around me can see it. And then that grows to 20%. And then once you get up over 50%, you have a very strong critical mass. And then that starts actually becoming, that's where you'd say it's becoming a movement. It's not about the leader anymore. There's enough people, you get up 60, 65, maybe 70% can see it and they're building it together. And then for me, it's more about just small course corrections. It's not me like pulling the ship along anymore. So I would, and here's the beautiful thing is, Indonesian people, but I would say especially here on this island in Java, also people in Bali are this way, so artistic, so creative, so filled with life. They're so musical and I'm honestly, I don't know, where does this come from? It's crazy. Like even little children, you just see them draw pictures and you go, wow, that's like a high school student drew that. How did you do that? There's this beautiful, inspiring, artistic aspect of the culture and of the people here. But then the education is so opposite of that. The education here is so rigid and so abusive. And I mean, really, literally, physically abusive to children, hitting kids in the class and calling them names. And, and it's all like this highly controlling environment. And that's how most of our teachers were actually educated.
All I want to say,
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating that you're saying that. And I want to contrast that to something that I saw one night at the school. So we're at the school. Paul lives practically at the school. Paul and Cyndi live across the street. And it's a very, you know, you could throw a rock. So Paul asked me, hey, you want to see the basketball game? And so that sounded great. So we went, and it was like an alumni game. They were the school was playing graduates, and I think the graduates won. But I'll tell you, the students held their own, and I'll never forget that middle school kid. There was a middle school kid who was, hanging with the big boys, and it was fun to watch him. It was just there's how there's some kids who are not quite at the level, Jake, but they're just fun to watch, and they're real young, and you kind of appreciate. He's like an 8th grader, but he's hanging.
You
with
kind of see him in 4 years from now, right? You kind of see
Yes.
a vision. Yeah,
That's right.
And Paul and I were talking about that. Paul was saying this kid is going to be a star one day, star in this school. So at Petty's, and at the end of the game, so there were some stats, and there were some students, female students, that I guess had just played, and they were in their jerseys, but they had the Charis Academy jersey. They had like these new jerseys on. These girls, the girls' team, basketball team, and they had just played. And I think we had seen some of that game, and they had some moves, and they kind of lined up, and they kind of formed a line at some point in the game, or maybe at the end of the boys' game. And they walked up to Paul, and they called him Puck Paul. I think that's Mr. Paul or Mr. Richardson. Puck.
It literally
Puck
means
Paul.
father, but it's
Father,
used like
okay.
Mr. Yeah.
And they came up to him because they had these jerseys, Jacob, with their names on the back. It wasn't just this generic jersey. It was Cadiz with their last name on the back. And it meant something to them. These girls, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Puck. And they were pointing to their jerseys. And you know me, Jake, and how angry and cold I am and bitter in life. Even someone like me, it just warmed me up. I'll never forget it. It was beautiful. I just want to share that story.
That's a good story. And
how did that make you?
What's that?
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say,
Go ahead.
I mean, when you're sharing that story, yeah, that is a beautiful story. I mean, I could picture in my head just because, you see young people all the time playing on basketball courts, but these are kids who are just excited to be on there with their jerseys. But as you were sharing your story, Paul, your 25-year journey there, how did you, as you're sharing, I was thinking, how do you push on when things don't go the way you were hoping to go? Like you said, it took about 10 years before you started seeing some growth. What pushed you on to continue doing that? Because I think some people would say, yeah, it's not for me, or maybe there might be people listening to this podcast saying, maybe I want to go overseas and do something like to teach overseas. But what got you? What encouraged you to continue to go on?
Good question. A deep question. And I would say around the age of 40. So 40 is your midlife crisis, right? So,
It is.
I started kind of freaking out a little bit. Like, am I wasting my life here? And I'm seeing all my friends that I graduated university with, and they're all buying these big, beautiful, nice houses, and they're becoming lawyers and kind of rising up high in management and their positions back in the States. And here I am. And I'm like, this is my last chance. Like, this is my defining moment. Do I leave and go back and just try to catch up? Because I said, who's going to hire somebody that's older than 40, like, and just who's been living overseas, and it was kind of this moment of truth. And it's like burn the boats, okay, or go back, just go home, leave, And that was not easy.
I bet.
There's a lot more to it.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense of my kids are becoming teenagers, Even like you're just talking about basketball, both of my sons are very tall and athletic. So they're Josiah's 6'4", Steven's 6'2.5", and I'm thinking they could play varsity sports, if they're in the States, and they could get good coaching. They could probably get college scholarships, but there's just not much for them here. And so there's a lot going on in my heart.
Yeah.
But after a lot of prayer, and Cyndi and I just felt the peace. Okay, this is it. This is what we're giving our lives to now. And once you make that decision, and especially at that age, then you're all in. You're all in. And all the thoughts of, boy, it'd be so nice to live there, or maybe we move there. Hey, look, there's a pretty cool job available in this other place. All that stuff disappears. And then you're just totally all in, and what happens then is you have a strong sense of ownership. Like, this is on me. And no matter what happens, I'm staying with my friends here through thick and thin. For me to leave, they would have to expel me, like the government would have to expel me from this country. So, once you've kind of locked into that new mindset, then no matter what happens, you just deal with it, you get back up, you just be resilient and move forward.
It's great.
Now, Paul, from an outsider's perspective, I will tell you how I viewed it. You walk out of the airport into a wave of heat and humidity. You drive down the street, and to let people know, forget about stop signs and red lights. There's the Matt, I'm coming, Matt. And I'm like, a few times, well, what? And Paul's just riding around. There's, none of the comforts that we know out there. The outsider, if hearing that or putting that on paper, if I were to read about that or hear about it, I'm thinking, what a sacrifice Paul and Cyndi are making, moving out there and living in this context. But when I was there and I got to meet the staff and some of the students and see the school and know who you are, I know who Cyndi is for many years, and I know you, both of you, I feel like we're the ones missing out. I feel like you're living in a kind of paradise. And I don't know how people would know that unless they were in it and to see it. It's just hard to describe unless you're there. And being a teacher and knowing these type of students and staff like that you're around, because you were mentioning the students' artistic ability, there's something about the spirit of these people that are they're like nobody else. So I just thought I'd share that because that's the perspective I got and what I experienced being there.
Oh yeah, so where I was going with that when you mentioned that, Ruben, is Jacob had asked about, oh no, I think you had asked about the vision, right? And I was saying, okay, so for the first decade, it's Jack LaLanne gripping a rope and pulling a ship. But then what happens is, once the teachers feel permission to really be themselves, to express their culture, to just flourish, they don't feel the fear that's just totally surrounding the world of education and school and classrooms and teachers. Then you have this flourishing, this beautiful, like the person that you're describing, that humility, the gratitude, the creative spirit, the love to laugh, the community, all of this just flourishes and rises up, within the context of our school and our staff and our kids. So you're right, it is like a paradise here. And to be honest with you, when I'm back in the States, and I'm in these suburbs, right? And that's just where people live. but it's kind of this context where you don't even know your neighbor's name on either side, and most people are like that. You come home and you're in a nice, beautiful house, but you're actually very alone. And when I'm in the US, I feel so lonely because here everything is about community and family, and people just love being together here, and everybody knows each other. And so, like you mentioned, our house is across the street from the school, and then we have the two dorms right next to us. There's another. These are university students and high school students, right, living in these dorms, and there's one on the campus, and so there's just life like all the time out my window at the front door. I'm hearing kids laughing and playing, and they're joking. There's a lot of activity going on all the time. And then when there's a vacation here, let's say mid-semester break, and it's a week off, it gets super quiet, and I'm like, oh man, I can't wait for Monday. Get all the energy of all these kids back here, So anyway, thank you, Ruben. That was good. That was really beautiful and complimentary observation of the Indonesian people here. They're so magnificent.
I always picture, Paul, that where you're at, and I've never been there, and I really would love to someday. But I picture it being beautiful, as in people like you're sharing, and even the app, the location. But is it, and maybe you could speak to this, is it like if someone like myself or someone else would like to visit there, is there any type of like they would feel in danger, or because of the government, or because maybe there are people who aren't so supportive of what you're doing there with this students, or maybe they are supportive, I don't know. But is there, like, there are people who are just fearful of traveling, but even going to a country like Indonesia, how can you speak to that regarding danger?
You have to know where you are. You kind of have to understand people here, and once you get the language, once you can follow the news, and you kind of start understanding where you are, and what you don't want is for your imagination or for predetermined stereotypes to take over and kind of fill in the blanks. We don't let that happen. So I would just say if I'm hosting you, I would keep you safe.
I just believe that. I believe that.
But this is the world's largest Islamic, Islamic country. So the vast majority of people from the majority, religion here are actually really sweet, really nice. They're just trying to live their lives. They're farming their fields, and they love their children, and they're totally fine with their Christian neighbors. But then you have these pockets in certain communities, and you kind of know where they are. Over there, you got to kind of be a little bit more careful over there. It would be like in LA. You kind of know the different neighborhoods, right? So, and like thinking where all three of us have worked.
Yeah.
It's similar to that. You kind of know where you got to know where you're at. But where we live is actually a very, very safe place.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, I feel like right now where I work, I'm getting a taste a little bit of your experience, in the sense that my new job has a very deep spiritual component to the education. I'm now teaching in a private school, and we're going to get into it in another episode. But my question is, and I've gotten new insight working at this new school, at this spiritual component that I just never seen before. And I wonder if you could speak to that, because Charis Academy is a Christian school. And what does that do to the staff and students when one of their priorities is the spiritual health of the students?
Yeah, and I think that's That's a good question in the sense that, for example, very, uh, very strong church-going believers in Christ, but their only experience is in public school. And I find this often, that they just have a hard time understanding this, right? But it's, if you can just, for example, think back, all right, just say that you started a school and you started with the question, what does a human being really need in order to totally flourish in their future? Okay, so if we go back in American history, if we go back 150 years, the vast majority of schools were actually in churches, and like Little House on the Prairie, right? And education was highly connected with the church, and the community was essentially a lot of Christian families coming together. So over time that has changed, and then this, separation, like there's commonly understood there's a separation of church and state. But that all made a lot of sense. The separation of church and state, and kind of like the not allowed to pray in school. I personally actually don't have a problem with that. Why? Because the kids are they're growing, like so in a human being, you have so many different components. We're complex, but we're spiritual beings. We have souls, we have hearts, we have relationships. So the development of a human being is not simply their ability to understand, physics and biology and math. There's so much more to a human being. And so the school takes care of this one part, and then the family and the church takes care of the other part in the past. But we're living in a generation now where the family is and the church is not actually doing their role. But then the school hasn't changed. The school is still only doing its part, but there's this whole other, I would say, not half, the other 80% of the child's development is just being totally ignored. So if you just say, okay, I'm going to start a school, private school, so we can do whatever we want. We can build our own curriculum. And we start with the question, what does a human being need to flourish? So then with the answers to that question, right, then you say, all right, what do they need to flourish in the business world, to become entrepreneurs, to live in society? What do they need to, let's say, become engineers and all these other things related to career, and they have to become creative problem solving and stuff. But then there's this other part where, picture somebody who's just got it together at work, but then when they get home, like their marriage is a mess. They're just totally estranged from their children can't stand them, and then they have these addictions and stuff. It's just like, okay, there are so many people like that, where there are these part of their lives that are just broken, and maybe what people see is this one thing, but there's this whole other part. And so when we think of the development from children growing up into their youth and into their adult years, if we love them and care about them, then we're going to want to address every aspect of their lives and bring them through the process of growing. And so their connection with God, their ability to live by faith, and to know that God is with them, and their ability to forgive their spouse, for example, their ability to, like, their EQ, right, their self-awareness and their humility, and there's all these other kind of like things that we would call character that we could say that used to be the responsibility of the family. And I'm talking globally now. So who are we actually competing with in the realm of this area of flourishing as a human? It's all the stuff coming out of Hollywood, everything coming out of the music industry, and all the stuff that kids are just constantly being bombarded with through social media. So I would say, all right, here in Charis, 1,050 students, I take the responsibility on to help these kids grow holistically. And I see them not only as a brain, but they have physical bodies, they have emotions, they have souls, and have relationships. And I want to see them flourish in every aspect of their life. And so I take that on, like that part of their education that they get when they go to school is holistic. It's everything that is developing and growing simultaneously. So I don't know if that makes sense, guys, but
I think that makes sense. It makes sense, like as in that's how you would want that for all students. But here in the States, it's obviously we have this things that will keep us from helping the child get that whole piece, right? I mean, we will maybe just the academics, but we know, and you know, and you just mentioned some of the things that really are difficult for our kids, that they're not getting all that. They're not getting the spiritual piece, and how important it is that we grew up with that, and we see how that has affected our lives and the decisions we've made, decisions you've made, even at the school. And so, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I feel like it's wonderful that your kids are being exposed to that. Man, I wish we could have that more at, here in the States.
It does exist in the States, and
Mhm.
it's fascinating to me, um, understanding the idea that maybe we need to ask our students, how is your relationship with God, before we impose rules on them. I'll leave it at that, because I know not everybody agrees, but it's worth looking at, and you really, being exposed to Cadiz was really an unusual situation. And I guess, and you explained it, it's the whole person. It's not just one aspect. They're academics, which is important. I guess we could go and discuss now specifically this trip, this trip that I took with a group of teachers. You invited us down, and I guess talk about what was the motive, what was the idea behind reaching out to us, and what was the results? What did you see good? And what would you do differently? That type of thing. And don't worry about sparing my feelings, Paul. But just talk about how you think things went.
so the backstory is that Charis has become something of a like a model school. Charis was identified by here everything is nationalized. So the leader of education for the whole country identified Charis as one of the 3 most influential schools in the whole nation. So this is 250 million people, and that he said that about a Christian school is astonishing. But we're constantly having groups of teachers coming here to learn, and they come and they sit in classrooms and they observe. And then we have this program called Transform Nation, where it's a teachers college, where high school graduates come here, they learn for 4 years, then they go out, they get certified, and they go out and they become teachers. We have another program called Elevate, where and this is mostly for young people in villages and remote places where there's very little infrastructure. A lot of places don't even have schools. There's nothing there for children. So Elevate is like a transformation, but fast track. It's only maybe 2.5 months. These young people come here, they get training, and they go. So my point is that internally in Charis, we're used to being the experts. And that's a very dangerous place to be. Then you can start seeing a little bit of arrogance coming. And it's, I started noticing it a little bit here and there. And I just thought, wow, what we're doing is comparing, we're like the big fish in the little pond. So, and when you're the big fish in the little pond, you really think you're something.
Yeah.
I want to bring some really high level educators here to kind of show our teachers that we don't really know anything. That was actually what was in my heart.
That's pretty humble of you.
So, um, so I just asked the best I could possibly find. You guys were and you made such an impact. People are still talking about it. So our high school principal just did a seminar with all the principals in our city called Best Practices. Now, see, that's a phrase, that's a concept we'd never even heard of
Oh, wow.
before 2 months ago. So and it's just like, okay, so and then the literacy and the numeracy and all these awesome things. And I noticed it during the week of training. I was curious how, how will our teachers respond? And they were just, I think maybe the first 2 days they were a little bit taken back because they could see how these educators coming from the US are so professional and they take their career so seriously. Like they really are learning and bringing the highest level that they can, and they're, it's just more like the attitude. And I felt like, wow, that's just so healthy for our teachers to see that, and then you just see them starting to take notes and starting to talk about it. And then it starts getting in conversations. And so Ruben, I could not exaggerate the impact that you guys have made. And I just hope and pray that you'd be willing to come back someday. And just, I
Well,
loved it. I loved it. It was, everybody did.
I appreciate that. And I do want to say, first of all, thank you for the invitation. I want to say that the part of the team was Sonia, Tovad, Penny Wolf, Wade and Helen, Harlan, Shali Sopa, and her husband. He escapes
Kent.
my.
Kent.
Say again.
Kent.
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 And so that was a real blessing for us too. And I'm glad that, you know what, we got together, Sonia, Penny, and I often, and we were like, we were nervous. Were we giving you what you needed? And so I'm glad, we're really blessed that you got something out of that. And yes, I want to say that first of all, your staff is amazing. Your teachers are so giving, and there was a moment where how HTML cord, am I doing this right? They just converge and set it up. They're so humble and kind and giving. The other thing is, I have to say that there was a moment in one of the seminars. I just want you to share, Paul, because it was so powerful for me to hear this. And not anybody, nobody heard it except for me because we paired up. But I asked the big hall of people, it was the Coddling of the American Mind seminar, and I asked them, have you experienced something in which at the time was difficult, arduous, but upon reflection, it was very meaningful for you? and actually fun upon reflections. It's strange about experiences that might seem worse at the time, but later on they change in meaning. And you shared a story that was so I had everybody sort of pair up and get into little groups and share with each other. And so you were by yourself just sitting there, and I go, I'm gonna pair up with Paul. I'm gonna see what he has to say. Can you share that story with us that you shared with me?
Okay. I hope I get the right story. But I think what I shared was a number of years back, I had this group of men from this church in Indiana. They wanted to come out and do a mission trip. And they're like, we have an special forces. We're ready to go. We can do whatever, okay, let's plan. And I'd been thinking about this because I knew there are these mountains in Borneo. The Indonesian side of Borneo is called Kalimantan. There's these mountains. It takes a long time to get there, and we have to hike up. But there's this leper colony up there, and there's actually a cure for leprosy. If you take a medication every day for about a year, it cures leprosy. So one of the men coming, I asked him about this, and he said he could bring the medicine. So they arrived at the same airport. So we flew over to Kalimantan. We drive 8 hours along this road. We sleep on the floor of this house in this village. It's just basically Indonesian food. It's like you said, it's right on the equator. It's blazing hot at 6 a.m. So we shoulder our backpacks and we're going to trek for 3 days into the jungle. And it's climbing these mountains, right? So like at 6:30 in the morning, we get to this river and we have to cross this river. There's no bridge. So we have to go into the river and we've got all our stuff. So I didn't want to get my shoes wet, right? So I take off my shoes and I'm kind of like walking and wading into this river. And then it's the riverbed is filled with sharp rocks. Okay. So my tender feet, I'm just going, oh no, right. So then these the Dayak tribe there. And these two guys that are literally about half my size, they come out and they actually picked me up. They carried me across the river, right? So then, okay, I put my shoes back on, and so we're trekking through the mud, and all of a sudden, leeches are just coming up into our socks. They're going down into our feet, and at first it was like, no way, you got a leech, that's awesome, And then after like 2 hours, everybody has, you stop counting at like 30 leeches. And then you just stop caring. So as you're walking, these leeches are crawling up your legs and they find a blood vessel and then they just stop and they just clamp their jaws into your blood vessel and they start sucking and then they swell up to like a cucumber.
Oh my God.
So then we're climbing and then it's like 8 o'clock in the morning and we're already just totally exhausted. So after and I won't even for the sake of time, I won't tell you all the details, but we didn't see a single person all day. We didn't see any sign of humanity for all day, right? So this one guy, the special forces guy, and my father had written a book called Peace Job, which is about cannibals that kill and eat their enemies, right? So he had read that on the plane coming over here. So this was in his head, right? So it's finally getting dark and we still haven't seen any sign of civilization. So he just freaks out. They're taking us out here to kill us and eat us. And he's like, we gotta go back. We gotta go back. And I'm like shaking him by the shoulders. No, don't panic. We can do this. So anyway,
And this guy was special forces?
Yes, so he was U.S. Army Rangers.
Okay.
So so finally we get into this village like late at night, um, and it just was, oh wow. I took off my shoes and just my feet. My shoes were literally filled with blood, from these leeches. But that's the leprosy colony was there, and we were able to give them the medicine, and so that was just the first day, right? So then we have two more days. And what's great, so at one point, this doctor who was in his 60s, I think it was maybe 65, and we get to this river, and he just lies down on this rock, and he says, Paul, please give my wife a message that I'm sorry I wasn't a very good husband. And please give my daughter a message. I'm sorry, I wish I could have been a better father, but I'm about to die. So he start, he starts crying, right?
Wow.
So we,
It's
so,
funny that you're laughing right now. That was like crazy at the time, right?
so so we pick him up. Dr. Chatham, you can do this. And like we're carrying him, the two of us carrying him down. And then, so we had to get over this mountain, right? Finally, we get over this mountain and we're going down the other side. And then we see this family coming up this trail. And there's this elderly lady. She's about half my size. And she's carrying on her back an LPG tank. Okay, it's like the thing is probably like 100 pounds, and she's just like walking up the
my
side of
God.
this mountain. So anyway,
Perspective there.
that's 3 crazy days. So here's the thing. So we finally get all the way back to the airport. We go into the lounge, okay, and we all got Coke, ice cold Coke, and we're just like, right? And then I asked, we're sitting in a circle, and I said, okay, guys, if you could go back in time, and would you do this trip, or would you not do it if you could go back in time? And it got real quiet, and then one person said, I wouldn't trade this trip for anything in the world. And someone else said, yeah, me too. This was the most meaningful experience of my life. And so that was this incredible moment of clarity for me about life itself. And I know you guys are big Jordan Peterson fans.
Yeah.
But that's, he locks in on this. The meaningful life is about taking responsibility. It's about growing stronger through facing challenges and solving problems and rising up in a dark world filled with pain and challenges and difficulties, and building a beautiful life. Like that's and living for something higher than yourself. So your session, Ruben, on coddling of the American mind, it just made so much sense to me. And man, I just wish everybody could hear that message. Because people can go ahead.
I appreciate that, and I want to say that the application as teachers for our students is that we don't have to feel like we should hold back and cater to their whims, but we can challenge them to higher things and greater challenges. You had made the point that you felt you need to be stronger with your Bible class and not coddle them. And it's a good reminder for me going forward of not being afraid to push and to have them experience that. And I like how you phrased it. It's we have to take responsibility, and that there are things that are higher than us. So that was a good time. Yeah.
Can I just share
Yeah.
one thing before, because I'm gonna kill myself. I'm not kill myself. I'm gonna be upset if I don't share this with you. That as I'm listening to you, Paul, and it's just very apparent that you're a good leader. Have you thought about, and maybe you're already doing this, and I'm sorry if I'm not assuming that you're not, but are you like mentoring somebody to like kind of like, we replace ourselves in a way, 10, 15 years from now? Is there somebody that or maybe you've done this already with several people, but have you brought someone under your wing to say, hey, just kind of watch, see, has that happened? I know you said you have a principal, but I'm not sure if that's the person, but can you share to that?
It's a good question. I mean, the place here is just got a lot of really, really high level leaders. But I feel like God hasn't shown me who that person is yet. But I feel like he will in time. And I'm praying for that. But meanwhile, I'm just kind of nurturing or just developing people all around me. I have this weekly group. I'm always meeting with a group of, let's say, 6 or 7 young teachers.
Mm.
And I just meet with them every Wednesday after school. And it's voluntary. It's not obligatory that they have to come, but I'm looking for those 25, 26-year-olds that don't really know themselves yet, but I'm just trying to invest in them and help them grow and build a vision for their life and develop as leaders. So, yeah, but thank you for that question.
Yeah, that's good.
Paul, that's a good segue to something that I noticed when we were up there. We were on a hike, and all, everything on the table. I will say this: I was very worried about this hike, and I worked out prior to the trip for this, I don't know, miles. I wanted to say at one point it was stated 6-mile hike. And I was like, oh no, okay, let's get ready for that. But during the hike, beautiful, man, just a beautiful mountain. And during the hike, it was sort of cut short. I'll just say it like that. A leader made a decision to cut it short. And you were near me, you were nearby. I was listening to you, and you were clearly disappointed in that. You did not like the decision. I could tell. But you didn't do anything about it. You didn't say, wait, I'm going to overrule. You just sort of said, this person made a decision. You didn't say anything. You just said, I wish we could finish this hike. And then we turned around. I thought that was really admirable that you didn't do that. I thought that you let him make that decision. I guess the question is, what is your leadership style? I mean, is that something that is meaningful to you? Is that something you value, to let leaders lead, or where did you get some of those concepts from?
Definitely let leaders lead. Absolutely. I don't attend their staff meetings. Like high school division, they have a high school principal. She runs that, and I would love to go, but I don't want to get in the way. She's the leader there. So I do that with all the divisions: kindergarten, elementary, junior high, high school, and transformation. But I do work with the leaders, and we meet. I like to know what their goals are, things like that. What are they learning? I love to gather information. Maybe part of my leadership style is I kind of see leadership as you're the one steering a car, but you have to have the windshield clear. You have to be able to see the road in front of you. And the road in front of you is just all the information. What are people thinking and feeling? And kind of like my worst nightmare is becoming that person that quietly, like all the teachers say, oh, that's just the director talking, and just he's so irrelevant. That would be horrible.
Yeah.
I like being relevant and knowing people, but specifically to the story you're sharing, Ruben, some people see perfectionism as a strength, and maybe it is in some ways, but I celebrate that I'm not a perfectionist. But what I am instead is I love to just see growth. And we just keep getting better. That's all I'm looking for. So, um, and I think that's, if I were to say, is there maybe one superpower that I have? That's it. It's like I'm living in, I'm a foreign person in a different country, and there's so much going on here that I could so easily complain about or say my way is better or whatever. We have to do it like this. No, I have to understand where I am in my context, and that everyone has their way of thinking, and everybody's kind of got their own culture and their own way of communicating. And so I'm just looking to see some growth. That's it. So if and other Westerners have become very frustrated with me about this because they say, "How do you let that happen? That's you know, that was substandard quality or something like that." And I would just say, "No, it's much better than the last time they did it."
That's great.
So that person's growing, you know. And so so on that occasion, yeah, I had delegated that. And I take responsibility for it because I wasn't clear enough, maybe, with what I was asking him to do, you know, with the route. Because that's one of my favorite hiking trails. And Cyndi and I have hiked it before. And there's this other way that you do it. And I thought I had explained it, but he didn't get it, that's all. He wasn't
And,
like trying to
right. And it doesn't mean that
do it his own way.
right. It doesn't mean that you maybe later on, maybe in a couple days or weeks, talk to him like, hey, what were you thinking about that? Or just asking questions about it, right? Just because maybe kind of figure out what was he thinking. But and at the same time, not putting blame or saying you did it wrong, just kind of like listening. So that's kind of a mentoring right there too, just to spend time with somebody afterwards to just to kind of see what they were thinking when they made that decision, right?
No, I didn't even have that conversation. That's my responsibility. I could have been more clear in what I had
Okay,
been, you know, wanting him to do. So
that's
we would
good.
have a conversation if I just saw something that was like, I don't know, really wrong. That wasn't wrong. It was just not what I wanted. It's a very big difference
Right.
between those two things, right?
Yeah.
That's right. Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. But I noticed it, and I appreciate that. And
Mm.
I just feel like it's an ego thing when we kind of push that forward, every whim, every desire we want. But I noticed that you sublimate, you know, you push that down, and it was not, for a while, it was nothing. I have one more kind of fun question. But Jake, is there anything else you want to say or share or ask Paul,
No,
our guest?
I think one of the reasons why we do this, Paul, and we had this is, can you believe this, like our fifth season, and we had you in the first season, I believe. And I think you would probably see this, that Ruben and I do this, a lot of it just so we could learn. And I feel like, I always have different goals every season. I'm trying to listen better this season.
Mm.
And so I was listening to you and I thought, oh, wow, I really enjoyed this interview just because I've really felt like I grew and I learned just even this last couple of things you shared. I'm like, oh, wow, there's so much more I could learn. And I'm just glad that I'm listening. And thanks for being with us so I could have that, opportunity to do that. So thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jacob.
Very good. I just want to, as important as these discussions are, we also have to reflect on the fact that the NFL season is upon us. I'm excited. Paul, I know you are excited about this. And I will bring up your team right now. Don't worry. I do want to say, I want to ask you a few questions just to test your football knowledge. But I'm going to ask Jake the question first, because I know if I ask you first, he's going to be influenced by you. And your football knowledge might be a little bit, I don't know, a little bit higher. No offense to you, Jacob. But
No,
I'll start with Jake. I'll go with you, Paul.
oh
Jake, I hope
boy.
you've been following
Oh, here we
somewhat.
go.
This is America's pastime. Okay.
All right.
Which two teams going into this season? Okay. Now I'm getting text. Which two teams going into this season are Jacob, are the top 2 seeded teams in the NFL?
Jeez.
That to me is the easiest question on my
The only
list.
thing I could say is because I'm not as well versed as baseball, but I would say the Chiefs maybe be one of them.
And what's the other?
So I got one. The Rams.
What's the
Rams.
What's that?
The Rams.
Okay. Oh, what is your
I'm off.
2 seeds?
What is commonly believed, or what do I actually think?
Yeah. What's the belief? What are the teams that people are saying? Oh,
49ers.
these are the top. Yeah, Chiefs and the 49ers. Paul gets that.
Super Bowl teams, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
This
They're Super
question
Bowl
is,
teams, and they didn't really lose many players, so they're
right.
Okay,
This
yeah.
next question is really challenging. Let's see how Jake does. Which 2 teams are the lowest ranked, lowest seeds? I think one of them is pretty easy to guess.
Is it the lowest? Would be someone like not the well, I wouldn't say the Chargers, but they have a good coach now, so probably not the Chargers. The Falcons.
Why am I asking you? The Chargers are the lowest?
No, I'm just saying that they were that good a couple years ago. Oh, I'm gonna say the Falcons and the Bears.
Okay. Oh, I actually think the Bears. I like the Bears this year.
Oh, yeah.
I like them. Okay. I should say, but they're not that low. No.
Okay, so I'm off.
Paul.
All right.
Yes.
I would put Carolina on there. Carolina Panthers.
You were right on one. That's so far so good, sir. Carolina.
New York Giants.
Oh, they're pretty bad too. They have the Patriots as the
Yes, Patriots. Yes.
Oh
Patriots.
my.
They've fallen on hard times.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I have a couple more. And that is this. Well, which player, because I'm doing fantasy football this year because at my work,
okay.
I'm really excited about it. But let's start with Jake and then we'll go with Paul. What player, and this is not scientific, but it's really accurate because I got onto a lot of sites. What player ranks #1, most picked, highest ranked player in all of football? In most polls, most sites, this guy ranks #1 a lot. Always top 5.
It's not going to be and I'm
not going to pick him. I'm pushing back. I'm not going to pick him on my team because here's a hint: he just got married. Go.
Oh, then it's not this guy. Then it has to be somebody else. He just got married.
Not Tom Brady, Jacob.
He's not the Bengals quarterback. What's his name?
No. It's not Joe Burrow. Okay,
Joe
Paul.
Burrow?
No, it's not Joe Burrow.
All right.
I don't
Paul, what's
follow
your selection?
fantasy football at all, so I'm swimming in deep water here. I don't even pay any. Okay, so someone who just got married. Jared Goff just got married, but there's no way that's
Oh, did he? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, no. I didn't know Jared Goff just got
I would
married.
say Patrick Mahomes, but I thought he'd been married.
I think he's been married a while. I was gonna say Mahomes too.
Who's even Christian McCaffrey.
Christian
McCaffrey.
Okay.
He's #1.
Yeah.
And then he gets one all over the place. So let's just call.
Okay.
What's that? Okay,
go ahead.
Let's pick them. Starting with Jake, then Paul. I have my selection for the Super Bowl, and you're gonna be blown away. People are gonna be crying on this podcast. I just have my selection, and I just want to start with you, Jake, and then we'll go to Paul because I have my pick. 2 teams that are going to the Super Bowl. Who are you picking, Jacob?
Oh, geez, I haven't even thought about this, Ruben. I'm gonna. You mentioned. I'm gonna say the 49ers for sure, but I'm not gonna say the Chiefs because the Chiefs can't go again, can they? Maybe
49ers and.
Can I say? Oh, geez. I don't know. I mean, the Raiders? I know that's terrible, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Oh, and I missed one. I have one last.
Was that a bad team too? That's a bad team.
Okay, Paul, what is your pick? San Francisco Raiders,
All right.
Jake pick.
I'm just gonna try to make this interesting.
Okay.
So let's go with Houston Texans for the AFC, and my team, the Rams, Los Angeles Rams.
Oh, what a homer.
That's a very
Oh, you are
bold. That's
really
bold.
disappointed. So
Let's
disappointed in
see.
you.
Hey, let's talk.
Yeah.
In February. Let's see. All right.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the Rams because I have something to say about the Rams to
All right.
close it off. I
We're
will
gonna
pick,
shock the world.
What are your picks?
I'm gonna pick, get ready, and I'm sorry, Detroit versus Cincinnati.
Oh,
Let's
wow.
have it. Because I'm like you, Paul, I'm gonna do something interesting. I don't want to pick the Niners and the Chiefs. Okay.
Those are good picks.
Last question
Good.
before we sign off. Which team is ranked higher going into this season? The Rams or the Raiders? Jacob.
I'm gonna say, ooh, the Raiders.
Paul.
Just ranked by who?
Yeah.
ESPN.
Oh, Rams, of course. Yeah. Much higher.
And I have the last word. The Raiders are ranked higher preseason.
Really?
Come
It's the
on.
only glory I'm gonna have. Right
Until they play each other, right?
Don't steal it from me, Paul. Don't laugh at me. I need
All
some
right.
kind of joy because we're in for a long season. Okay, good luck to the Rams. And Paul, it's been great having you once again.
Mm.
And Kat,
So good to see
can't
you
wait
guys.
to your
Good to see you too, brother.
Yes.
All right.
Thanks for joining us.
Have a great year. Maybe I'll see you guys in December. Who knows?
Yes.
Yes.
That'd be
We gotta
nice.
meet up.
Coffee.
All right.
Yeah, if I'm in LA. All right, guys. Have a
All right,
great
brother.
night.
We'll talk.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay.
Have a
All
good
right.
day. We'll talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye-bye.